Before I kick off the video that I filmed for today, this is a little intro on a couple of things I missed, and I wanted to stick it in the front because I forgot to mention that in the reactions to an email that I sent out to 4,400 staff, it was funny because people are either just or yeah, or they read the first part when they heard the first part of my email were like, yes. And then as they got down to the political, kind of went, So again, lots of reactions. But recently I was at a conference, and I'm not going to say what that's about or for, because I don't want to disclose where I work. But I got to see this amazing priest speak, and his name is Father Leo, and he's Filipino and short and pokes fun at himself. He is so funny, so articulate, and he has this cooking show. And so you can actually look him up on fullplate.com, something about a plate, and Father Leo. And he, his belief is that food will bring the world together. But what the best part of being at this conference was for 3 days, among many people like me, but you don't sort of know about everybody's take on things, with this and just with the other thing that, some people say they're awake, but still think certain things are conspiracies. Well, he was just amazing. He was like shining the light and talking about, like, if you don't believe in evil, look at the politicians in this world. And he talked about that time, about when it all first went down and he couldn't do this cooking show and spend a lot of his time outside walking because he wasn't scared of the air. And he continued to make little barbs like that all through the 3 days. And I was like, yes, an awake priest, calling out the woke crap. And after I went up to him on the third day and thanked him for doing this, I said, it's such a joy to watch you, and the cooking was so fun, but I love that you're awake and that you're planting those seeds among so many people, and your views that not everybody is comfortable with and is scared to talk about. And I told him that I'm a freedom fighter and that I've been doing this for 5 years now, and how I've lost a lot of friends and family and neighbors and coworkers, or the respect of just those relationships. And it's funny because a coworker was near me and listening and saying, oh, don't worry about, what people think of you. And I go, oh no, I don't, done, got, that's not what I'm talking to Father Leo about, because God already replaced those lost relationships with new ones and new friendships. And I've also learned to spend a lot of time alone. But I'm saying this to Father Leo, thank you for being somebody in such a spotlight among people who have such influence among other people and children. And thank you for doing that. I just appreciate, as one freedom fighter to another, I appreciate, because he does it with love and salt. He's just funny, but has a way of cutting in and can be a bit salty. And he looked at me and said, don't stop what you're doing. Keep doing what you're doing. And I said, oh, you got it. So I just wanted to add, it feels pretty good to have, I already know in my heart what I'm doing is right, but it was really cool to have just an amazing priest who's just on humanity's side and just a treasure to listen to. He had a standing ovation. Nobody knows in 20 years when a priest got a standing ovation. And that's what we need, is just people to breathe life back into faith, no matter what denomination they're from. I'm not into any religion or denomination. I just believe in Christ, and I go to Bible study where I can just be me and question things and not follow an indoctrine. Anyways, that's it. I'm going to stop this and show you the real video. Have a great day. Good afternoon and happy Sunday. And welcome to, I used to call it Katie Stories, and I used to call it Taking Back Canada with Katie. And now I just call it What the Heck Do I Know? Which has a few different meanings. I've been wanting to tell this story for quite a while. And My main mission is to inspire people to speak up and have courage and not worry what people think about you. And if failing that, I just hope this entertains you and shows you how crazy I was and still am about our freedom and sovereignty, not in this, just in this country, but on this planet. So in 2020, many of you know my story, but I'm going to repeat it again in case you're new here. Like prior to 2020, I was just having fun on YouTube because I had a little chapter in a women's compilation. And I went from telling stories on that to talking about healing and some, great ways to get happy. But when the vid came and hit in March 2020, like many others, I just went along. But there were inklings. There were inklings that something wasn't right, from the Liberals giving themselves a raise when nobody even knew if they were going to be working, to the gun grab, which, if you look back at history, they only do that when they have plans for you that you're not going to like. And as I carried on into the fall and started working in a high school, the inconsistencies of what was being done in those early stages, nothing was making sense. Things were not adding up. And I started going down the rabbit hole. You can look way back. Like if you go way, way, way back to my videos 4 years ago, you'll see in September, or was that early October, where I did Instagram Killed Me, and I liked it because I had 5,200 followers. I'd worked super hard for that. It was spiritual, just lift you up content, and it was taken down. And there was no explanation. I could not get hold of anybody to restore it. And it just showed me like that creepy feeling that everything you've built can be taken out, right, in the blink of an eye. And when I made a little account to just kind of go, talk to some friends and let them know what had happened, I started to see that other accounts similar to mine had also been taken down, that there was this common thread. And that led me down the rabbit hole, to which I've never stopped. And so many of the things that I've spoken about back then are coming true now. And I think when you look at the title of this story, I emailed 4,400 people in the school district to give my stance on the big hoax. And not only did I give my stance on that, but I gave a lot more. I went political. I talked about the things that are coming if people don't wake up. And yeah, it was quite sensational. I had a lot of reactions, and maybe I'll talk about those after and just get to the point now and start reading. And that's what I was going to say. Like, we are now in the fall of 25. And as you know, England is starting to get in the stages of the first digital ID, currency, and credit score, which we've all said was coming. And there's now, whisperings of that coming to Canada. Absolutely. That's why Mr. Carnage, Count Carnage, is here to implement that and finish off what Trudeau started. So I'm going to read this email that I sent to 4,400 people. And it'll be interesting to see what has come true, what I got right, what I got wrong, and the reactions that I got. And that they didn't kill me. That if anything, I'm still talking and so much stronger. I promise that when you have courage and go against the grain and you're willing to look like a crazy loon, that God has your back and will absolutely put the right people in your life so you keep going. Okay, so let's go. So I'm not going to say who I wrote it to or what school or anything, but some of you know, some of you know. I am exercising my right to refuse unsafe work. It's not about being asked to work in a different cohort. I was actually excited to connect with a student I believe I could truly support. I love my job. I love the students, staff, and our wonderful admin. My reasons for refusing unsafe work do not stop there. So again, keep in mind, this was in November of 2020, when it was very, very unsafe to be talking about anything but the narrative. Not only are we in flu season and stuffed inside a building with 800 students who then leave at lunch and cross cohorts, share vapes, drinks, cigarettes, kisses, walk in the hall without a mask after being told repeatedly to mask up, etc., let alone what we cannot control about who they live with and the health of those people in their bubbles. I am a very healthy, strong woman, mind, heart, and soul, but man, am I tired. And I'm just an EA sliding in and out at 8:30 to 3. I can't even fathom the weariness of teachers and admin, case managers, child and youth care workers, librarians, cafeteria, and custodians, and many more staff who work longer hours with endless paper trails, prepping and marking, not to mention the ever-changing software, rules, and report cards. I suspect several reasons for my weariness. 1, the frustration of trying to teach a huge percentage of teens who are heavily addicted to their cell phones, and I'm actually quite effective with these kids. 2, wearing a mask and breathing back in my CO2. 3, what are we breathing in each day? From the machines running all night, pumping highly concentrated disinfectant into the air, to the heavy use of sanitizer and sprays used on surfaces. Staff and students are breaking into hives. I have as well on my back. It's not shingles or bites. I'm no expert here, but my intuition tells me the strong Wi-Fi energy outlets in each and every room are not as safe as we have been led to believe. Plus, what emit off 900 plus phones in the building. Finally, I'd like to touch on the Great Reset. Trudeau finally cracked and let it out. It's not a conspiracy, it's a fact. Yet Canadians never voted on it, did we? Please watch this video to understand how the pandemic has been used to do this. We have been lied to for a very long time. Our country and neighboring country, rest of globe, have been indoctrinated for years. We were taught to trust our safe country, all of its educational and media sources, and believe we could never be open to harm. Until Trudeau brought his way in legalizing pot. Bought his way in by legalizing pot, especially on the heels of Harper, because people were tired of him and he had to go. Anyway, that video was, if you remember the turd doing the Great Reset. And our news is heavily censored, so you'll only find the truth on media sources you've been taught to reject and laugh at, such as Rebel News and True North, now known as Juno. Today, the Liberals met at a Freedom Press junket without the press being invited. I believe to tighten the grip on Canadians being able to see the destruction taking place around the globe so as not to clue us in that something evil indeed is happening under our trusted noses while we dutifully shuffle about in masks, keeping our distance, closing small stores, missing the touch of loved ones, etc. I believe also that this private media meeting was for a heavily planned and pushed propaganda to keep pushing fear. Distraction, fear, and slow changes are shown in history of when a government is corrupt and plans to oppress its people. Any media who dares to speak out is quickly silenced with the threat of lost job and contract. There's many more links I could provide, but I won't. My Facebook page is public. You can follow the trail I've left or do your own due diligence and follow the money. Canada's 5 big banks are owned by none other than the Rothschilds. Tuberculosis vaccines were $3 a pop. Look at the insane money tied to vaccines now. Methadone is huge money. Does our government really care about the growing addicted homeless everywhere in our cities? The only way out is through Robert Frost. I highly recommend switching over to the credit union while you can. Follow the ties of mobile providers linked to Justin Trudeau, In the We Day charity Virgin-owned, Richard Branson was very chummy with Jeffrey Epstein and had ties to the other evil sex trafficker cult leader Keith Raniere of NXIVM or 1VM. Then, the most chilling of all, look for Bill Gates and his special relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. Why would a kind humanitarian like Bill consort with a known pedophile? Bill was caught on his Lolita plane and denied that he knew it was Epstein's plane. Bill Clinton visited that island many times. Hillary and the Obamas are dirty too. Trump was draining the swamp. He's no angel, but saw for years what was coming, and that's why he ran for president. That's what I thought back then, but he's in on it. He's friends with them. But I'm going to continue on what I thought in 2020. The Democrats hate him so much, they've controlled the media to brand him a racist, sexist, and criminal. He pulled out of the WHO and the UN. The elites knew they could not pull off the global reset with him standing in the way, so they used the Dominion software program for fraudulent elections. That's how Trudeau got in last year, and that's how he and his party will fall. Oh, it's coming. Follow Pierre Poilievre, conservative, on YouTube, Facebook, Erin O'Toole for Prime Minister, and Alberta's Honourable Michelle Rempel-Garner, Health Minister, Commonwealth. I don't trust any of them anymore, so that's changed. Uniparty! Yeah, it's us against the globalists. Where am I now? Months of excruciating filibustering they've endured while trying to do their job, seeing where the billions and billions of the unaccounted dollars have gone to. And now we're up to trillions, aren't we? And botched, shuttered, prorogued attempts to block them from access. The huge We Day scandal. The Liberal government who says they're transparent are anything but. This isn't just dirty politics. It's a planned coup. They will crush our economy with repeated lockdowns. They smile and lie and tell us Huna Matata, rates are low and will stay that way for a while. What just a 1% increase of that debt would do is hair-raising. Next, the banks will crash, but Justin will bail them out. So just to pause there, yeah, what's changed in 4 years with the interest rates? They did hike up, and many, many people have lost their homes and can't afford their mortgages anymore. And it's come down a titch here and there, but that was accurate. Okay, Justin will bail them out, then offer us exchange of debts in exchange for our properties. It's called sovereign debt, and they come for our homes, land, and eventually assets. You own nothing, you will own nothing and be happy is the World Economic Forum slogan for 2030, Earth's Sustainable Plan. But watch their pretty words, because if they get their way and vaccinate us all, eliminate cash and everything digital, that will be the start of a control of our every moments, from knowing your smart meter, what you do at home, to your phone showing where you go to. All gas and wood heating will be eliminated. Everything with electric heat on a high emitted frequency that bugs are drawn to. Notice all of the huge apartment buildings popping up everywhere, and walls have ears. Scary, but yes, that's the ultimate evil goal. Communism. Climate change, carbon tax. Canada is a massive green space, absorbing a ton of CO2 with oxygen. Even with all of our industry emissions across Canada, we come nowhere near China or India. Their main source of transportation is two-stroke motorbikes, which is one of the worst offenders on the planet. Just the breath of people in China alone gives off more TOC than our whole country, Canada. Justin is on record saying at a private liberal fundraiser how he admires the Chinese for their dictatorship, their basic dictatorship, and how they've turned their economy around on a dime. He also has publicly expressed his love for Fidel Castro. His proper Jagmeet Singh Fed praises Fidel too. Jag Singh, the Fed NDP leader with the least seats, steering the ship. Wow, eh? By the way, I'm not a conservative, and it's not usually the pick of any union member, but they will need our votes to save this country and make massive changes to our laws on corruption, dismantle the self-serving Liberal Party, among so much else. But, you know, the elbows up crowd, you see that didn't happen. It was on its way. That propaganda's good. Pumped out for the mainstream. Anyway, I'm going back to reading. Justin is trying to pass a bill right now to lower the voting age to 16 and wants to legalize hard drugs. So the 16 didn't happen yet, but legalizing hard drugs did. Let's carry on. Bring in 1 million immigrants next year. Yeah, that's about it happened in the midst of a pandemic so he can get their votes. But told our veterans we're asking for too much. My mom's older brother, Thomas Gerald O'Dwyer, fought for our freedom and died at Normandy Beach, July 30th, 44. And my father, Frank Seriani, did too and made it home with the frontline private shell shock. So many of us have similar stories. Our country was founded on immigrants, and we made a name by being smart, helpful, and friendly. The liberals have sought to break our freedom of speech through systematic brainwashing with abusing the racism word and overuse of political correctness to stifle the voice of dissent. So I'm going to just pause there for a sec. And when I'm talking about Justin will bail out debts in exchange for our properties, nobody knows where this is going yet, but we have about a year, and the banks are now saying this, right? There's actually video evidence of the bank saying that our dollar is going to be worthless by next year at this time. And our land is being transferred over to Indigenous parties, and this is private property. This is not like crown land. This is our land. This is going to be to divide, to make it so high in taxes that you cannot afford your property. I think it's still going to go slow. I think that is the way that they've been getting away with draining our country of all of its value, is just doing everything so slow and having the media gagged, right? So that people just aren't hearing it. As much as we know the media is falling, it still has power. I mean, it still has the power to have people think, tell them what to think and what to feel. So I'm going to keep going. Just like George Orwell predicted, they will begin to erase our history. Oh, haven't they been doing that? Last week, Whole Foods poppy debacle. Ottawa said staff couldn't wear a poppy, then retract hours later after a huge backlash. Huge backlash is great. Guess who owns them? Whole Foods. Jeff Bezos of Amazon, yeah. Guess who has big ties to this guy? Yeah, our little bagman Justin Trudeau. And George Soros, communist-loving, well, back then he was 89, he's almost 94 now, billionaire, who's expressed his hatred for the USA. George and Justin's finance minister, Chrystia Freeland, are quite chummy. In fact, she would have been his biographer if not taken the job with Trudeau. So I dug around on her, and interestingly on Wikipedia found she wrote a book. And this part on Venezuela, how she didn't approve of the scum who pulled the coup. I could never find that again, so I think that was actually wrong. But she did read that other book, write that other book about, let me see if I have it here. So we'll go into her family history. Her grandfather by marriage was a journalist and editor-in-chief in Nazi-occupied Austria and Poland. Or maybe it was the Ukraine. I might have had that wrong. For an anti-Semitic newspaper. No big deal, right? Not her fault, even blood-related. But wait. On the same source, it stated that Freeland's uncle did an expose on these papers in the 80s, and then she did in 96. So in 2017, she denied having any knowledge of government involvement with the Nazis, and she blamed it on a smear campaign with Russian disinformation to keep her out of office. Okay, I'm on the last page of this big email that I sent. Something's been cut off here. So, man, a true evil coming our way. It's happening around the globe, but again, you will see little evidence of that on our talking head media, owned and controlled by the government. And social media, don't even get me started. My holistic positive author account with almost 5,000 followers was deleted for no reason in early September. I told you about that already. And that upset me, then opened my eyes. Watching The Social Dilemma on Netflix was a massive eye-opener. Show that to your kids if you can even find it anymore, The Social Dilemma. It talks about like the suicide rate in young girls and how their serotonin levels get all, wonky with looking for those likes on their photo, and yeah, just all kinds of that. Anyway, I lost my place. Ex-employees on Google, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, even Pinterest made the documentary to show the ugly side and do not let their kids use any of the apps. Did you know in the last 5 years or so, suicide in teen girls spiked 170%? Meanwhile, Justin does a vape study. These millions spent really never go anywhere, do they? And we've discovered that too. I'm telling you, not reading from here. How like he donate like 12 million to some LGBTQ thing over in like Egypt or India. And then it was traced that only 900,000 of that actually made it to that country. The rest is all being money laundered. Anyway, back to reading. Meanwhile, Justin does a vape study at millions. Look at the heavily censored one-side media and social media in the USA. The Democrats' big elite globalist friends control all of that. And guess again who's chummy with Biden? Yep, Justin. Threw him a goodbye party in 2016, paid for by Canadians. He filibustered his way out of that one too. Thanks to Justin, Canadians donated $20 million to the Clintons' trust fund. And we know that was all dirty, wasn't it? I have nothing to lose by telling each and every one of you this, because we are about to lose everything if we stay silent. I encourage you to stand your ground, refuse the sick game, and refuse unsafe work. Notice what's not being said. Vancouver is pretty much locked down, yet the ferries are jammed with passengers and travelers, driving with plates from Alberta, Saskatchewan, Ontario, because they want to spread COVID here to lock us down and kill the economy here too. This pandemic has made the rich way more rich and squashed the middle class and oppressed the already poor. We have reserves across Canada with dirty drinking water and infrastructure falling apart and schools squeezed tight. I've hummed and hawed, and I'm inclined to believe the virus is real. My 19-year-old daughter contracted COVID a few weeks ago in Edmonton, where she attends university, and it sped quickly to 9 others. This person who originally brought it in had it the worst. As it spread, it weakened. It was basically like a winter flu. A week of headache, stuffy nose, scratchy throat. Thankfully, my daughter and her friends recovered easily, but she feels distressed she'll get it again, and that if someone died from her possibly passing it on in a grocery store while she was infected and not symptomatic. She worries about Christmas, 6 of us in the house. Yet those big American stores are full of people, aren't they? And doesn't Amazon do great under lockdowns? I heard since March, Bezos made another $83 billion. Someone corrected me the other day and said, no, it's more. Can you see now? Google Justin Trudeau with Biden, George Soros, Jeff Bezos. As for deadly 80% deaths in senior homes and 6,000 in Quebec, 3,000 across Canada, Bill 218 passed by Libs blocks any lawsuits from dealing with senior homes. Of course, wouldn't want a bunch of suits there. But there's a bunch of whistleblowing being hushed. Watching Randy Hillier, Ontario MPP, talk for an hour explaining the heartache of seniors dying alone and family helplessly not being there. These seniors deprived of even a shower during a quarantine. Does this sound like a government that cares? Sorry, I gotta fix something on my camera. Go away. There. If this virus is so deadly and so contagious, where's the biohazard containers for the safe disposal? Meanwhile, suicides are spiking. People have died waiting for surgeries. Credible doctors and scientists who've been silenced or bought off. I could go on, but I won't. Many of you who truly know me know I stand for truth and love. I'm wide awake and don't have a care in the world what others think of me. Still true. Blessings to you all, and be open to listening to all sides. Be open to a higher power, because that's the only way we will save our country and our world. It's ultimately in God's hands. His timing is impeccable, but he needs us to believe in what's right and stand up for what's not. Please enjoy these YouTube videos I made a few weeks ago when the veil lifted. Yeah, a bit of self-promotion there. There's a few errors I realize in hindsight, like voting Liberal in snap election, as we don't have a Conservative constituent in my riding. I hope you give them a thumbs up and subscribe before YouTube takes me down. Be safe, be kind, believe in your voice. In truth, love, and light. Katie Sariani Bull. So, The reactions were really funny. As soon as I put that out, my phone rang within minutes, and it was my boss. He was a teacher at the school I worked for a couple years before, and I was doing foster care for him because he ran a foster care. And he was like, "What have you done? Are you scared you're going to get fired?" And I said, "No." I was all calm. I'm like, "I don't have a record. Like, I've been a really good employee, so I don't think there's much they can do." And then one of my best friends phoned me the next day and said, "Couldn't you have warned me?" Like, I didn't warn her. And so everybody's coming up to her because by the next day, everybody had been reading it and now they were talking. And my phone was blowing up and I'm getting emails. I'm getting texts like, "I fucking love you, Katie." Like, "Yay, awesome." And then I'm getting like, "Are you all right?" And then my friend's like, "Can you warn me?" Like, everybody's coming up to me in the hallway going, "You hear about Katie?" And she's like, "No, she hadn't read it." So I was like, "Oh, sorry. I just had the courage and I just went rat-a-tat-tat and fired that out." So then when I had talked to my boss, like who I did foster care for, he said, "Katie, I know you and I love you and I know you have this big heart. But people that don't know you, who don't know you, are going to think you're," and I'm like, "Crazy? Yeah, it's okay. Like, I don't care. I'm so done with these lies and this narrative and everybody being so programmed and blinded and hypnotized that I wanted a reaction. I wanted to have a reaction, and boy, did I get one." So at this point, I had asked for some time off, and they came back to me and said, "We will grant you 2 weeks off. However, before you can return to school, you have to go to the doctor and have a meeting with the union leader to assure us that you're not cray-cray, that you're not unhinged and you can work with the kids." I'm like, "Sure." So I go to meet with my union rep and he's like, "No, you're not crazy, Katie. I looked into all the numbers with that, like, and you know, the 99.7% recovery rate, and they don't make sense. The numbers do not make sense." And he was an expert in calculus and numbers. And he said, "But I don't know if I agree with all the political stuff, and you probably shouldn't be political in your emails, but I get what you're saying. None of it makes sense. So cool, okay, thanks." And then I went to my doctor, and that was really interesting because as soon as I walked into my doctor and showed him the forms and told him why I was there, he said, "No, you're totally right. You're not crazy. If Trump doesn't get in, we're screwed." Sadly, months later, when I would go back to him, he had swallowed the Kool-Aid. He had said, just get it, you know, that the quicker you get it and everyone else gets it, my son can come home from Europe. He's been trapped in his dorm room for 5 months." And I was really disappointed that he didn't stand with his convictions, but I did. So glad about that. I'm not worrying about anything. As for reactions, like other people, when I would walk down the hall at school, there was one teacher in particular, holy, she just was wearing that diaper all the time and she would not look me in the eye. There were people that just would not look at me. I would just say hello and keep going and not worry. And definitely, I mean, as I drifted from people, and as we came around to 2021, that's when we decided to leave the island and move up here. And it was back, trying to think now, back when my cat died last year in 2024, I had just really, there's a big hole in my heart. And I was just grieving so much. And I was watching videos on dealing with pet loss and grieving and why they leave the way they do and how that affects us with our healing, and about the big, big love that we need to give to others. And I started to pray about those people I've drifted from fortunately not my best friends. Like if you know me and my fabs, my great buddies on the island, we are still all beautiful friends, but I'm grateful for the space of being up here because I would be too much for them down there. And I don't want to be censored. They don't want to censor me, but they don't want to hear about things either. So it is good to still have your boundaries and keep the people you love around. But it's also that you got to still be you and not censor yourself. So find a happy medium. So anyway, there were two people that I sort of drifted from that I kept thinking about. And so I prayed about them. And I didn't really want to reach out to them because then if they were friendly, I would never really know if they were just being that way and if they were genuine. So it was quite lovely when shortly after my cat died and I had posted something on that I heard from one of those friends, and they told me that they had been, were sorry to hear about my cat and hoped, maybe we could have tea sometime. And then the other friend, when we got close to Christmas, my daughter and her friend came and we went and met them down at this vintage store on Boxing Day. And her mother came along, and she was the other person I'd really been missing. And we hugged it out, and she, was sad that we hadn't talked for so long. And I said, well, I figured, you never said goodbye when I left, and you must have thought I was crazy. And then she shared that her husband has the same views, shares the same views as I do, and my husband does. And that he too had been ostracized from a group of our buddies who didn't like us speaking out against distancing and masking and that stuff. And sadly, one of them had lost their mother, which was really sad, and in a care home due to that. And we now know that's a bioweapon, but I think many people who lost people due to that, and it wasn't, there's a way that they worded it, that you didn't die of it, you died from it or with it. So, you'd be in there for a heart attack or car crash, but, that was what they were writing down because they were making a lot of money off of those diagnoses and deaths. So, I've been a while here, so that's all I really have to say on that. Not as earth-shattering now, actually, but I do wonder if the digital currency that I talked about in there, that's all coming true now. So I hope that some of those normies remember that. And I love that when I do run into people, they don't see me frothing at the mouth, and I'm happy, healthy, and loving, and still smiling, because you don't let these things get the best of you. And if you trust, you don't need to be afraid. I don't fear being unalived. In fact, it'd be an honor if it's speaking up for my fellow humans and humanity, my country, and for God. Okay, so I'm going to end this now. Love you so much. Hope I didn't miss anything. Hope you had a good laugh. Yeah, I'm crazy about my country. I'm crazy about you, crazy about our children and future generations, and I'm crazy about our future. Amen. Thank you, Lord, for helping me do this awkward video. Happy Sunday.